you're on the bridge, so you can stay in your seat if you want to. So, I'm going to ask all of you to act as if you're kids. How hard will that be? No, not very hard. Okay. All right. Well, the story that we just heard is kind of scary. It's already evening. Jesus' disciples are probably tired when Jesus decides that they should get in a boat and go over to the other side of the lake. So it's called the Sea of Galilee, but you know that it's just a lake. It doesn't have its own waves. The waves are whipped up by the wind. Okay. So, it's getting dark, and a big windstorm comes up. Now, they're probably using a boat that has both sails and oars. I don't know if you've thought about that before. But you know, when there are sails and there's a big windstorm, it can almost capsize. It drags the boat down. So, and rowing can be really hard. So either way, in a big windstorm, it's not much fun. Okay. So what is Jesus doing? Sleeping. Don't you wish you had that little anxiety that you could sleep through those kind of conditions? That would just be great. Anyway, so we hear that they actually have to wake him up. That's amazing. And they say, "Teacher, don't you care? We're about ready to die here." Whether or not they are, you know, we always feel like we're ready to die when something catastrophic happens. So he wakes up and he says, "Peace, be still." And there's dead calm. Okay, so the wind is not blowing at all. But they have another problem. If it's dead calm, then they really have to put their backs into it and row. So if it's not one thing, it's another, I guess. So anyway, there are two things that I want us to think about today. The first is that Jesus doesn't say, "Go across to the other side." Does he? What's the difference between what he said and saying, "Go across to the other side"? Anybody have any ideas? Well, he doesn't direct them, okay? He also doesn't say, "Follow me to the other side." So he doesn't say go, he doesn't say follow me. What does he say instead? Let us go across to the other side. Okay, so what does that imply? That he's with them, right? He's not leading them, he's not directing them, he's with them. Okay, so even if he takes a nap, he'll be with them no matter what. So, you know, it's kind of like when we take our photos with Flat Jesus, we are recognizing that Jesus goes with us wherever we are. And, yeah, so that's something important to remember as we head into this season. But here's the other thing. The disciples also go with Jesus because he asked them to, but they don't know where they're going or why. Okay? There's an interesting story that follows this one in the Bible, and we never get to it in the lectionary, which is kind of interesting. We skip over a fairly big chunk right after this. And this is the story of the man who is healed on the other side of the lake. That's an exorcism, actually, where he's cast out, the demons are cast out. They say he has an unclean spirit. And he is the one who knows who Jesus is. He calls him Son of the Most High God. So, he asks Jesus to leave him alone, but Jesus has compassion on him and gets rid of the unclean spirit into the pigs, and they throw themselves into the water. You remember that. So here's what I want you to think about today. Because the disciples get in the boat and go to this place that they've never seen, they have an experience that they wouldn't have had if they hadn't gotten into the boat. Okay? It took them to a different place, and now they will see things differently. Sometimes on the internet or on Facebook, they'll say, photos that can't be unseen. Well, it's kind of like that. It's once you get over there and you see Jesus doing this, you can't unsee it. It will change your reality. So, have you ever gone to a place or been somewhere, had an experience that made you see things differently?
Sure.
Okay, so everybody knows what that's like. Okay, so this is going to be kind of an interesting exercise. For a minute, I'd like to invite you to get a different perspective. Okay? Who has never stood in the pulpit and looked out at people sitting here? Would you like to come up and do that? Come on up. Come and stand in the pulpit and look out at people. This is the pulpit right here. This is where I usually preach from. So isn't that interesting, huh? That's a different perspective. Okay, how about anybody else? Anybody want to come up and stand in the pulpit? Probably fewer people have stood in the pulpit than have stood behind the altar. Anybody? Okay, Gary?
I'm often over here at the lectern, but never at the pulpit.
Okay, go ahead.
I see you here in photographs and video. Cool.
Okay. A little intimidating, isn't it? Okay. Anybody else? You want to come? Jeri doesn't want to, she just left. Okay, all right, so how about behind the altar? Anybody want to come up and stand behind the altar? See what that feels like? To stand up here and look out and feel the solidness of this. Anybody like to come?
How do we get a job like yours?
We have to go to school for 4 extra years. But, Linda, you come up here. You come up and stand behind. Just to see what it's like. Oh, there is that. There is some of that. Okay, so how about the piano? Anybody like to sit at the piano? That's a different experience, isn't it? Okay, come on. Come and sit at the piano. And you can imagine that you can barely see what's happening up here, and you can see people up here.
This is scary.
Okay. Okay. So, how about ringing the bell? Anybody feel like doing that? Okay, Helen. Okay, come on, let's go ring the bell. We've rung the bell so often this week, our neighbors don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's full. Does anybody else want to ring? It takes a pull before it starts ringing. What'd you say, Fran?
It's harder than what it looks.
It's harder than what it looks. Ellie's going to ring a bell. Take some muscle. Try.
I probably don't have enough.
See, once you get it going, it's not as hard as you think, but. It's okay. It's all right. Harry will take it. Yeah, just hang it. It's all right. Anybody else? Is there any place else that you'd like to stand that I haven't pointed out? Okay, we'll ring those bells up there. Ellie told me she hadn't been an acolyte. She's going to be both today, so she probably won't be able to ring bells anyway. Go ahead. There you go. Okay, so the interesting thing about being in these different places is it gives us a different perspective. Okay. The other day, some of us had a different experience because of the sad thing that happened in Charleston. You all know about that, and I won't spend time dwelling on that, but our Bishop Barry asked us to come together and to pray the St. Francis prayer and to ring our bell for 10 minutes. So 9 minutes, 1 minute for each of the people who was killed, and then an extra minute for the shooter. And so that's what we did. We did that on Friday. And we had an experience that we hadn't had before. I felt, I don't know about the rest of you who heard it or who rang it, but it felt to me like we heard it in a different way. We heard it like this awful thing that keeps happening again and again and again and again. And it needs our help to stop it. And so that was the primary experience for me on Friday. I know that for several of us, the ringing of the bell was very emotional. So, the thing is that we need to remember that wherever we are, we can make a difference, and we can put ourselves in a different place. Yes, Ellen?
I was home watching on TV and I got emotional.
Oh, did you? Just watching it on
Just
TV.
watching it on TV.
Yeah. Well, and obviously what we experienced is because of the horror that was experienced elsewhere. And, there are a bunch of people all over the country today talking about this and about what we need to do, what we predominantly white people need to do to make things different, to make things better for people of color. So, if we can remember what it's like to be in a different place, maybe today's gospel today can help us to do that. Whenever we go to a different place, try to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, we're being in a place that Jesus already knows. Okay? Just like he knew where they were going when they were going across to the other side. And he's also with us. So I think those are the things to remember.